My name is Ira Harmon, and I work for Sauvage here in Las Vegas. It's a mid-range wholesaler.
Red wine gives you a hangover. White wine doesn't give you a hangover that much.
In my experience, anything will give you a hangover if you
Is
drink
it true
too much.
that maybe, let's say if it's the exact thing, like 2 glasses of red wine and 2 glasses of white wine, same alcohol percentage, do you think red wine gives you a headache?
That could be possible because of the histamines, but in general, no. But I don't think it's any more or less than white wine. Like I said, in my experience, if you drink too much, you're going to have a hangover.
Chilling a red wine
Oh
is
boy, I
bad.
love my Beaujolais chilled mildly, and yes, there's a call for chilled red wine.
Older vintage wines are always sort of better, like if I'm having the same 2024 Shiraz and 2025 Shiraz, like it's expensive usually. Older, it's expensive and better.
That depends on your preferences, because I know a lot of people that don't like old wine, that would rather have fresher bottles. That's what they're accustomed to, particularly in the California Cabernet sector. I certainly for myself like older wines because it gives the wines more time to mature in the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And you usually get a better bouquet from being in the bottle. So there are advantages to both. One, you don't have to wait. The other one, patience is usually paid off fairly well.
When someone decants, like a drink now wine, like Yellowtail or Jacob's Creek, for example, is it good, or it's just a show thing they're doing?
Well, there's something to be said about any wine in any bottle getting out in kind of stretching itself to make it a little bit more better bouquet, if you will. But it doesn't matter whether it's either one of those two wines.
So it's a good idea. It's a good idea to decant no matter what, is it?
I always preach to everybody, if you have the time, decant it. First of all, it is a show. If you're on the floor, it is a show. And usually one show leads to another show, which may increase your sales.
True. Food pairing myths, right? Like red wine goes with red meat, white wine, usually we see seafood.
Once again, it comes down to personal preferences, but there was a guy by the name of Josh Wesson that came out with Red Wine with Fish, a book that's, I think, out of print now, but it was an excellently written book. You can pretty much, and people do it anyway, I mean, as much as we are as sommeliers out there, they're going to drink their Cabernet with shrimp if they want to. And like I said, that's personal preference. My thing is basically red wine with meat is much better than white wine with meat, but there are cases where white wine, Chardonnay, can go with a grilled steak very nicely.
Wine particles in wine means wine has gone bad.
No, it's usually just sediment that's falling out with some of the polyphenols and etc.
Now, a couple of how-to, right? How do you create a fizz in a sparkling wine, which you've already opened? Is there any techniques or any hacks where you can create a fizz again?
You can mark your glasses, which tends to bring out the fizz a little bit more. In my personal experience, the wine is never around long enough to lose the fizz. So you would have to be not drinking very much in order to lose.
I mean, let's
say
it's day two. You just had one glass, and tomorrow you're planning to have, literally it's day two in the fridge and it's open. Are there any techniques to again create that bubble and fizz?
Well, like I said, there is you can mark a glass, and it usually allows the carbon dioxide to come out, or the bubbles to come back, but that's the only one that I'm aware of. The other thing is you can put a stopper in there, a bottle stopper, and that will keep the fizz in there for a couple of days. I mean, weeks sometimes.
How do you avoid a hangover? What's your tips for hangover hacks?
Don't drink so much.
That's
I don't have any tried and true. There's all sorts of products out there. I really haven't tried any. Moderation is definitely a key to doing it. If there is, my only hack was if I was really hammered or something, I'd want a greasy breakfast. for some reason that helps.
Home tasting, right? Someone just calling their friends first time, sort of, they're Googling, how do I do a nice home wine tasting? What is a quick format or a setup that you would advise, it can make a nice, small, little good home tasting?
Well, I would get the same varietals from different sections, from different AVAs, if you will, or AOCs or DOCs, and try them side by side a little bit. And I think you can accomplish a lot. I would also not show them the labels. I would let them do it blind. Because I think that brings out more of what they're trying to get to, which will give you more nuances of flavor, I think, if you don't know what the wine is.
And, if you had to just make a information sheet, like 4 or 5, just to gamify the experience, what are the 3 or 4 things you would put down on a paper, you would make them do?
Color, the nose, the body, and the finish are 4 or 5 things. And then I'd put down an extra, what do you think the wine is? Because that's kind of like, it's like a little game that you can take anywhere. And it doesn't matter whether it's all red wine or all white wine, or normally I would do either red or white. And not a combination if you're doing a little tasting at home.
For opening wine bottle without a corkscrew, do you know different ways, and what are those?
Well, there's the shoe trick, but I don't know. I've never really tried that. And in my experience, I've pushed the corks down with a big pen. The shoe trick is pretty clever. I think you can catch it on YouTube. But once again, I don't think that's as tried and true as maybe pushing the cork down with a big pen or some type of tool. What
kind of tips usually sommeliers expect to get on the checks?
Well, it depends on the restaurant, what they're doing. Actually, I mean, today in Las Vegas, there's the sommeliers are getting not tipped in some of the rooms, where you have the unions taking over the room and saying that they're not getting tipped anymore. They're not getting part of the tip pool. Because normally what they do here is they have a tip pool and then you get your share. A couple of rooms that have went under here have lost their sommeliers because of that reason. I think a sommelier is as important not only to service, but to the restaurant as any one of those individual waiters. The waiters may have a different attitude, but if you've got a sommelier on the floor, you're going to be selling wine. And a lot of these cases with restaurants, what they take to the bottom line is their beverage program. So if you cut out the sommelier, you're cutting out part of that bottom line.
That makes me ask you, who is a good sommelier to you?
Well, a good sommelier is one that's got enough wisdom and knows the list, who can actually talk while he's opening the bottle of wine, or she is, and keep you interested in it and in the process. Meanwhile, a little bit of showmanship is always nice at the table. Kind of relaxes your customers and allows them to not see you as, in the old days, we saw everybody with the ashtray on their chest, a little tossed them in. And that was like a sure sign that you're going to have to pay $100 more. Today, sommeliers are more into making the personal experience wonderful. And that's what I'm thinking that I like when I see it on the floor.
Side hustles for sommeliers, like what are some career moves that you've seen, or some side income, that you've seen people are doing these days where they can explore?
I see some getting involved in wine sales. I see others, and sometimes they have to take a second job, but that would be an extension of their first job for the most part. It would be a sommelier at maybe a different restaurant. There's a couple of somms here that work in 3 restaurants, and they're busy all the time. As far as the side hustle, you can teach classes. I see a lot of people doing that today. I didn't get paid very much for my teaching, but I enjoyed teaching back in those days and still do a little bit. Mostly just wine tastings now, but there are other avenues that you can approach. Certainly getting to know wineries and becoming more involved, or starting on our little brokerage, but still you're going to have to work the floor for that money until you get something involved.
how intense is the program? What are the benefits you personally saw the day you became master sommelier, and what it took? What kind of what's your experience about being a master sommelier?
My experience was one of the best things I ever did in my life. I was a little bit lost when I started and I found it. Of course, it had been a hobby for so long. And then it was a very intense 4 years that it took to become one. And I didn't, if I had lived down the road 3.5 hours in Aspen, I might have had a better chance at seeing all these great wines than I did in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. But there was something there that gave me a lot of confidence from passing that. I mean, the tests are very difficult. There's no lying there, and they may have increased with the technical knowledge that they have today. There's more information out there, but it's easier to access. Back in the day when I was going through, it took 3 months to find a book and another 3 months to get it. If you had a question, you sent a letter off to a winemaker in France, and in 6 months you might have it back. I mean, it was antiquated back then, but we got through it. We did a lot of reading and sharing of books, though, because there was a dearth of them back then.